Hey guys, tonight we're plunging you into the Wild West, where the sun scorches the earth and every shadow hides a threat. Picture yourself standing on cracked, red dirt, the horizon shimmering with heat. A lone tumbleweed rolls past, and the air smells of dust and danger. You're not just visiting, you're fighting to survive. Spoiler alert, you probably won't make it through the day. This isn't the romantic cowboy flick you're used to. It's a gritty, unforgiving frontier where one wrong step means you're buzzard food. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with your location and local time. I love knowing where you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake to a dawn that's more fire than light. The sun claws its way over the horizon, painting the desert in shades of blood and gold. Your mouth's already dry, like you've been chewing on sand all night. You're not in some cozy bed. You're sprawled on a threadbare blanket, the ground beneath you hard as iron. Your clothes, ill-fitting, patched-up hand-me-downs, stick to your skin with sweat. You've got no phone, no GPS, just a battered canteen and a vague hope of finding something. Civilization, maybe? Good luck. The Wild West doesn't care about your dreams. It's 1870, and you're a nobody in a land that chews up nobodies for breakfast. Your first problem hits before you even stand. Thirst. That canteen's got maybe a cup of water left, and it tastes like rust. You take a sip, and it's gone too fast. The nearest water source? Could be a mile. Could be 10. You don't know, and the map you bought from that shifty trader back in St. Louis is just a smudged piece of paper now. Historical fact? Water was so scarce in the American West that settlers often died within days of running dry. One quirky tidbit? Some desperate folks tried drinking cactus pulp. Spoiler, it's not as refreshing as it sounds and often made them sicker. Historians still argue whether more pioneers died from dehydration or dysentery. But either way, you're on the fast track to joining them. You stagger to your feet, the heat already pressing down like a heavy hand. Your boots, too tight and worn thin, pinch with every step. The desert stretches out, endless and cruel, dotted with jagged rocks and spiky yucca plants. You think, I'll just walk till I find a town. Oh, sweet summer child, towns are few and far between, and the ones that exist aren't exactly rolling out the welcome mat. You're more likely to stumble into a rattlesnake nest than a friendly saloon. Speaking of which, you hear a faint rustle in the scrub brush. Is it the wind, a critter, or something that'll make you wish you'd stayed in bed? Wherever that was, you trudge forward, the sun climbing higher, turning the air into a furnace. Sweat stings your eyes and your lips crack like old leather. You're not just hot, you're cooking. Your stomach growls, but food's a distant memory. You've got a strip of jerky somewhere in your pack, but it's so tough you'd need a hammer to chew it. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy bring jerky to the desert? Because starvation's a lousy dance partner. You chuckle to yourself, but it's weak. The heat's stealing your sense of humor already. Every step kicks up dust that coats your throat, making you cough. You're starting to see why folks didn't just go for a stroll out here. The landscape's a maze of dead ends, dry washes, crumbling cliffs, and thorny bushes that snag your clothes like greedy fingers. You spot a lone buzzard circling overhead, and it feels personal. Not yet, buddy, you mutter, but your voice is hoarse, barely a whisper. You're alone, exposed, and the Wild West is just getting started with you. That rustling in the brush is louder now, closer. You freeze, heart pounding. Whatever's out there, it's not offering you a cold drink. You decide to keep moving, picking a direction at random. North? South? Doesn't matter when you're this lost. The ground's so hot it feels like walking on coals. You're starting to hallucinate, or are you? That shimmering patch ahead looks like water, but you've heard of mirages. Still, hope's a sneaky thing, and you quicken your pace, only to find more dust. Joke number 2. What's a cowboy's favorite mirage? The one with a saloon and free refills. You'd laugh, but your throat's too dry. You're not just surviving. You're gambling with every step. and the house always wins out here. By noon, the sun's a merciless hammer, and you're the nail. Your canteen's empty now, and you're regretting that last sip you took an hour ago. Your head throbs, and your legs feel like they're made of lead. You're not sure how much longer you can keep this up. The Wild West doesn't give second chances, and you're already on your ninth. That rustling's gone quiet, but you're not relieved. Silence out here's just the calm before the storm. You squint at the horizon, praying for a sign. A town, a river, anything. All you see is more desert, more heat, more ways to lose. You stumble through the blistering sands, each step sinking into the scorching desert floor. The sun's a tyrant overhead, baking your skin until it feels like it might crack. Your tongue's swollen, sticking to the roof of your mouth, and the memory of that last sip from your canteen haunts you like a bad breakup. You're in the heart of the Wild West's brutal desert, and dehydration's not just a word, it's a predator stalking you. Every breath pulls in hot, dry air that scorches your lungs. You're not walking so much as dragging yourself forward, chasing a faint hope of water that's probably just another cruel mirage. The landscape's a torture chamber of dunes and jagged rocks, with no shade to offer mercy. You spot a lone saguaro cactus, its arms raised like it's mocking your misery. You've heard stories of cutting open a cactus for water, but your rusty pocket knife's no match for its tough hide. Historical fact: in the 19th century, many travelers perished in the southwest deserts, with diaries found later describing their desperate searches for water sources that didn't exist. Quirky tidbit: some old prospectors swore by chewing on pebbles to trick their mouths into producing saliva, about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. Historians still argue whether more died from thirst or from drinking contaminated water in desperation, but you're leaning toward the former as your vision blurs. Your boots are caked with sand, and each step feels like wading through molasses. You're sweating buckets, but it's evaporating so fast, you're not even damp anymore, just salty and sore. You try to think of something cheerful, like a cold soda, but your brain's too parched for daydreams. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy cross the desert? To get to the oasis that wasn't there. You snort, but it's more of a wheeze. The heat's turning your sense of humor to dust. You squint at the horizon, hoping for a glint of water, a creek, a puddle, anything. Instead, you see waves of heat rising from the ground, taunting you with visions of lakes that vanish as you approach. Your head's pounding now, a relentless drumbeat that matches your slowing pulse. You've got no map, no compass, just a fading instinct to keep moving. Stopping feels like surrender, and you're not ready to wave the white flag yet. But the desert's patient. It knows it'll win eventually. A faint shimmer catches your eye. A rock formation maybe, or a trick of the light. You stumble toward it, praying it's a spring. Your legs are wobbling, and you trip over a half-buried stone, landing hard on your knees. The pain's sharp, but you're too tired to curse. You crawl a few feet, then force yourself upright. The shimmer's closer now, but it's just a dry wash, a cruel ditch that hasn't seen water in years. You slump against a boulder, its surface hot enough to blister your skin through your shirt. Joke number 2. What's a desert's favorite game? Hide and seek, with the water always hiding. You'd roll your eyes if they weren't so dry. You're starting to hear things now, a faint trickle like a stream just out of reach. It's probably your imagination, but you turn your head anyway, straining to listen. Nothing. Just the hiss of wind over sand. Your lips are so chapped they're bleeding, and you taste copper when you lick them. You're not just thirsty, you're becoming thirst. Every cell in your body screams for water, but the Wild West doesn't care about your needs. It's a land forged in indifference, and you're just another fool who thought you could tame it. You dig through your pack, hoping you missed something. A forgotten flask, a damp rag, anything. All you find is that strip of jerky from earlier, now looking like petrified wood. You try to chew it, but your mouth's too dry to make a dent. You spit it out, and it lands in the sand like an offering to the desert gods. You're starting to understand why people went mad out here. The solitude, the heat, the endless nothing. It's enough to break anyone. You think back to that shifty trader in St. Louis, the one who sold you that useless map. If you ever see him again, you'll... What? You're too weak to even finish the thought. The sun's dipping slightly, but it's still hours from setting. You're not sure you'll make it that long. Your heart's racing, then slowing, like it can't decide whether to fight or give up. You force yourself to stand, swaying like a drunk. You pick a direction, any direction, and start walking again. Each step is a defiance, a middle finger to the desert's smug certainty. But deep down, you know you're running out of moves. The buzzard's back, circling higher now, patient as death. You glare at it, muttering, "Not today." But your voice is barely a croak, and the desert just laughs. Your stomach's a howling void, gnawing at you as you stagger across the Wild West's unforgiving terrain. The desert's behind you now, but the scrubby plains stretching ahead offer no relief. Hunger's your new companion, sharper than the thorns snagging your pants. You haven't eaten since that pitiful strip of jerky you couldn't even chew, and the thought of food, any food, makes your mouth water, though it's too dry to drool. You're not just hungry, you're starving in a land that's stingy with its bounty. Hunting or foraging sounds romantic until you realize you've got no clue how to track game or spot an edible plant. The landscape's a patchwork of dry grass and stunted bushes, with the occasional jackrabbit darting out of sight. You've got a rusty knife and a vague memory of some survival show, but that's not enough out here. Historical fact: in the 1870s, many settlers on the frontier faced starvation when crops failed or game was scarce, often surviving on meager rations of beans or spoiled meat. Quirky tidbit: some pioneers ate prickly pear cactus fruit, thorns and all, in desperation. Imagine the worst smoothie ever. Historians still argue whether malnutrition or disease killed more settlers, but your empty belly's betting on the former. You scan the ground for anything edible. A cluster of berries catches your eye, red and tempting on a low bush. You reach for them, then hesitate. Are they safe? You've heard of poison berries, nightshade maybe? But hunger's louder than caution. You pop one in your mouth, and it's bitter, puckering your lips. You spit it out, heart racing. Bad call. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy eat mystery berries? Because starvation's a lousy chef. You wipe your mouth, hoping you didn't just doom yourself. You keep moving, eyes peeled for game. A squirrel skitters across a rock, and you fumble for a stone to throw, but it's gone before you can aim. You're no hunter. Your skills are more microwave dinner than track and kill. You try to channel some old Western hero, but all you've got is a growling stomach and shaky hands. The plains are cruelly deceptive. They look alive, but hide their food like a miser. You spot a patch of green that might be wild onions, but when you dig, it's just tough roots, tasteless and stringy. You chew anyway, gagging on the dirt still clinging to them. The sun's still high, baking the earth, and you're resolved. You're weaker now, each step heavier than the last. Hunger's not just physical, it's messing with your head. You're starting to see things. A juicy apple dangling from a sagebrush, a steak sizzling on a rock. You blink, and they're gone. Your brain's playing dirty tricks, and you're too tired to call its bluff. Joke number 2. What's a starving cowboy's favorite mirage? A buffet with no line. You'd laugh, but it takes energy you don't have. You remember that shifty trader from St. Louis, the one who promised plenty of game out here? If you could, you'd track him down and feed him those bitter berries. Instead, you're stuck scrounging. You spot a lizard sunning itself, and for a wild moment, you consider grabbing it. You lunge, but it's faster, disappearing into a crack. You're left sprawled in the dirt, cursing your city-soft reflexes. The buzzard's still up there, circling like it knows you're running out of steam. Keep waiting, you mutter, but your voice is weak, swallowed by the wind. You try foraging again, pawing through the grass for anything that looks like food. You find a few seeds, tiny and hard, but when you crush them between your teeth, they taste like dust. You're starting to understand why people turn to eating leather belts or boot soles. Your pack's got nothing left. No jerky, no crumbs, just the useless map and that dull knife. You think about cutting strips from your belt, but it's so worn it'd probably dissolve into grit. The plains stretch on, mocking you with their emptiness. You're not just fighting hunger, you're fighting despair. Every failed attempt to find food chips away at your hope. You stumble over a dried buffalo chip, and for a dark second, You wonder if it's edible. You shake your head, horrified. Not yet. But the thought lingers. And that scares you more than the hunger itself. Joke number 3. Why'd the cowboy stare at buffalo dung? He was hungry for a new low. You force a chuckle, but it's hollow. Evening's creeping in, the sky turning a bruised purple. You're too weak to keep walking much longer. You need food, or you're not making it through the night. You spot a distant shape. Maybe a deer? Maybe another hallucination? You drag yourself toward it, clutching your knife. If it's real, you'll have to figure out how to kill it, skin it, cook it. The thought's overwhelming, but hunger's a brutal motivator. You're not a survivor yet. Just a desperate fool gambling with the Wild West's cruel odds. You trudge through the Wild West's endless plains, your empty stomach a distant ache now, dulled by exhaustion. The horizon's a hazy line, and every shadow seems to move, taunting you with the threat of outlaws. You're not just fighting hunger or thirst anymore. Bandits are the new specter haunting your steps. Your meager supplies, a dull knife and that tattered blanket, feel like a neon sign screaming, "Rob me!" The frontier's a lawless sprawl, and you're a walking target, too weak to fight and too slow to run. Every rustle in the grass makes your heart lurch, and you're praying your luck holds out. The plains are dotted with low hills, perfect for ambushes. You clutch your knife, its blade more rust than steel, and try to look tougher than you feel. Historical fact: in the 1870s, outlaws like Jesse James and the Younger Gang terrorized the West, robbing stagecoaches and lone travelers with impunity. Quirky tidbit: some bandits left behind calling cards, like carved initials on stolen goods, as if crime needed a signature. Historians still argue whether these outlaws were folk heroes or just greedy thugs, but to you, they're a nightmare with a six-shooter. You spot a faint trail, maybe from a wagon or a horse, and follow it, hoping it leads to safety. Bad move. Trails are bandit magnets, and you're not exactly blending in with your stumbling gait and dust-caked clothes. A distant hoofbeat sends you diving behind a boulder, heart hammering. You peek out, seeing nothing but swaying grass. False alarm? Maybe. But your nerves are frayed, and every gust of wind feels like a whispered threat. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy hide from shadows? Because outlaws don't send RSVPs. You keep moving, sticking to low ground, though it's hard to crouch when your legs are jelly. You're remembering that trader in St. Louis, the one who said the West was full of opportunity. Opportunity to get robbed, maybe. Your pack's light, but it's got your blanket, and out here, that's worth stealing. You think about ditching it, but nights are cold, and you're not that desperate. Yet. The sun's dipping, casting long shadows that stretch like fingers across the dirt. You're starting to see faces in them, leering grins of men who'd kill for a bent spoon. A real sound stops you cold, a low whistle, sharp and human. You freeze, scanning the hills. Nothing. Then, a glint of metal catches your eye. Maybe a gun barrel, maybe just a rock reflecting light. You don't stick around to find out. You bolt, half running, half falling, toward a cluster of scrubby trees. Your lungs burn, and your boots slip on loose gravel. You dive into the brush, thorns tearing at your skin, and huddle there, trying not to breathe too loud. Joke number 2. What's a bandit's favorite game? Catch the coward. It's always in season. Minutes crawl by, and you hear nothing but your own pulse. You risk a glance, but the plains are empty, the whistle gone. Maybe it was a bird, or your mind cracking under the strain. You're not built for this. Dodging outlaws requires grit you haven't got. You think about the stories of travelers found stripped and left for dead, their bones picked clean by coyotes. That buzzard's still circling, probably betting on you to join them. You mutter, "Not yet," but it's more plea than promise. You crawl out, brushing thorns from your sleeves, and keep moving. The trail's too risky now, so you veer off, picking your way through knee-high grass. Every step's a gamble. Stay low and you're slow. Stand tall and you're a target. You're starting to hate this place. Its beauty, a lie hiding 1,000 ways to die. You spot a broken arrow in the dirt, its fletching frayed. Was it from a bandit? A native hunter? You don't know. And that's the problem. Everything's a threat when you're this exposed. Night's creeping closer, and you need shelter. somewhere to hide from prying eyes. You find a shallow ditch, barely deep enough to cover you, and curl up with your blanket. It's not much, but it's better than being spotted. You're too jittery to sleep, every snap of a twig jolting you upright. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so tense? Because even the grass is plotting against you. You force a weak chuckle, but it's lost in the dark. You're starting to realize survival's not just about food or water, it's about outsmarting the human wolves circling you. You grip your knife tighter, though it's more comfort than weapon. The stars are out now, cold and indifferent, and you wonder if you'll see morning. Somewhere, an owl hoots, and you flinch. Outlaws don't need to find you. Fear's doing their work for them. You pull the blanket closer, praying the night passes quietly. You're crouched in that shallow ditch, the night air chilling your bones as the Wild West's dangers shift from human to slithering. Your blanket's a thin shield against the cold, but it's no match for the fear prickling your skin. Every rustle in the grass feels like a warning, and now, as you peer into the dark, you hear it. A faint, dry rattle, like marbles in a tin can. Your heart skips. A rattlesnake's nearby, its venomous coils hidden in the shadows, and one wrong move could turn your survival gamble into a death sentence. You're not just dodging outlaws anymore. Nature's got its own assassins, and they don't negotiate. The plains are alive with nocturnal whispers, crickets, wind, and that cursed rattle. You strain your eyes, trying to spot the snake, but the moonlight's too weak, painting everything in shades of gray. Historical fact: rattlesnake bites were a leading cause of death in the 19th century West, with settlers often succumbing to venom before help could arrive. Quirky tidbit: some cowboys swore by tying a rope around their camp to keep snakes out, believing they wouldn't cross it. About as effective as a polite, no trespassing sign. Historians still argue whether more died from snake bites or infections from botched treatments, but you're too busy panicking to care. You grip your rusty knife, though it's useless against a snake's speed. The rattle's louder now, closer, somewhere to your left. You're frozen, afraid to shift even an inch. Your ditch feels less like shelter and more like a trap, hemming you in with nowhere to run. You think back to that useless map from St. Louis, wishing it had a "Beware of Snakes" marker. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy camp in a ditch? To make the snake's job easier. You swallow a nervous laugh, not daring to make a sound. You try to remember what you've heard about rattlesnakes. Stay still and they might leave? Or is that for bears? Your brain's a jumbled mess, hunger and thirst clouding your thoughts. The rattle stops, and you're not sure if that's good or bad. Silence could mean it's gone, or it's poised to strike. You inch your hand toward a stick, hoping to prod the ground, but your fingers brush something scaly. You jerk back, stifling a yelp. Was it the snake? A twig? Your pulse is a drumbeat, drowning out reason. You decide to move, slowly. You slide one leg out, testing the ground, then the other. The rattle starts again, sharp and angry, and you freeze mid-crouch. It's definitely closer, maybe a yard away. You can't see it, but you feel its presence, a coiled promise of pain. You're starting to hate this place more than ever, its beauty a mask for 1,000 deadly tricks. Joke number 2. What's a rattlesnake's favorite dance? The one where you're the partner. You'd roll your eyes, but you're too busy praying. You're running out of options. Stay, and you're a sitting duck. Move, and you're rolling the dice. You think about that buzzard from earlier, still circling somewhere above, probably rooting for the snake. Not tonight, you whisper, barely audible. You decide to risk it. You ease forward, inch by agonizing inch, keeping low. The rattle fades slightly, and you dare to hope it's losing interest. Your ditch opens to a patch of open ground, and you crawl toward it, thorns scraping your palms. You make it 10 feet, then 20, and the rattle's gone quiet. You collapse behind a rock, gasping, your body shaking from adrenaline. You're not safe, not by a long shot, but you've dodged one bullet. Or fang. You check your legs, half expecting a bite you didn't feel. Nothing, thank God. You're starting to understand why settlers feared the dark out here. It's not just the cold or the bandits, it's the unseen killers waiting for you to slip. You wrap your blanket tighter, though it's more for comfort than warmth. You need to rest, but sleep's a luxury when every shadow could be deadly. You think about that traitor again? The one who sold you this nightmare. If you survive, you'll have words for him. Sharp ones. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so charming? It's got a real bite. You force a weak chuckle, but it's lost in the wind. Dawn's still hours away, and you're too wired to close your eyes. You huddle against the rock, knife in hand, listening for that rattle. The stars above are cold, watching you struggle like it's just another night in the West. You're not a hero, not a survivor, just a fool who thought you could outlast this land. The snake's out there, and so are 100 other threats. You pull your knees up, trying to stay alert, but your body's begging for rest. One wrong blink, and you're done. You're shivering against that rock, the night's chill seeping through your threadbare blanket, but the rattlesnake's rattle has faded, leaving you with a new kind of dread. Dawn's breaking, painting the sky a bruised pink, and you're stumbling toward a faint plume of smoke on the horizon. A boom town, maybe. Your first shot at civilization in this merciless Wild West. But as you get closer, the air thickens with the stench of sweat, whiskey, and broken dreams. This isn't a safe haven. It's a chaotic mining town, where every saloon door hides a scam, and every stranger's smile feels like a trap. You're about to learn that people can be as deadly as snakes out here. The town's a ramshackle sprawl of tents and wooden shacks, thrown together like a drunk's fever dream. Men shout over the clang of picks and the creak of wagons, their faces grimy with dust and greed. You weave through the crowd, your empty stomach twisting at the smell of charred meat from a street vendor. You've got no money, just that rusty knife and a blanket you're clutching like a lifeline. Historical fact: in the 1870s, boomtowns like Virginia City or Deadwood sprang up overnight, fueled by gold and silver rushes, only to collapse when the veins ran dry. Quirky tidbit: some towns had hurdy-gurdy houses, where men paid to dance with women who were often more con artist than partner. Historians still argue whether these towns were engines of opportunity or cesspools of vice, but you're leaning toward the latter as a drunk stumbles into you, cursing. You dodge him, keeping your head low. Your plan's simple: find food, water, maybe a job. But every step feels like walking a tightrope. A man in a flashy vest eyes your blanket, and you pull it tighter, remembering those outlaws from the plains. You spot a saloon, its sign promising meals and lodging. You push through the batwing doors, and the air hits you: stale beer, tobacco, and desperation. The barkeep's wiping a glass, sizing you up like you're a mark. You ask about work, but he laughs. Got any coin? You don't, and he points to the door. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy visit a saloon? To get kicked out before the first drink. You try another tack, offering to sweep floors for a meal. The barkeep hesitates, then tosses you a stale biscuit. It's hard as a rock, but you shove it in your mouth, crumbs sticking to your cracked lips. You're so hungry you barely chew. Someone snickers, and you realize you're the entertainment now, a starving drifter begging for scraps. You spot a card game in the corner, men betting gold nuggets and glares. One player, with a scar across his cheek, catches your eye and smirks. You back away, sensing trouble. The saloon's a powder keg, and you're a spark. Outside, the street's no better. A snake oil salesman hawks miracle tonics from a wagon, his voice drowning out the moans of a sick miner slumped nearby. You consider the tonic. Your throat's still parched, but you've got no cash, and the salesman's grin screams swindler. You move on, dodging a fight spilling out of another saloon. 2 men grapple in the dirt, fists flying, while onlookers bet on the winner. You're starting to see the town's rhythm. Everyone's out to take, and you've got nothing to give. Joke number 2. What's a boomtown's motto? Trust no one, especially the guy selling hope. You find a water pump near a livery stable and drink greedily, the metallic taste a small mercy. But as you straighten, a burly man with a badge, maybe a sheriff, maybe a hired thug, grabs your arm. You new here? He growls, eyeing your blanket. You nod, stammering about looking for work. He lets go but warns you to stay clean or end up in a ditch. You're not sure if he's protecting the town or shaking you down. Either way, you're on notice. You keep moving. Weaving through tents where miners haggle over tools and women in faded dresses whisper offers you can't afford. You're exhausted, but stopping feels like admitting defeat. You think back to that rattlesnake, its cold patience. This town's no different, just a bigger predator. Joke number 3. Why's a boomtown like a snake? It'll charm you before it strikes. You force a weak grin, but your heart's not in it. Night's falling, and the town grows louder, drunker, meaner. You need a plan. Food, shelter, anything. But every door is a gamble. You spot a boarding house, its sign promising beds for $1. You've got no money, but maybe you can barter. You're starting to realize survival here isn't about strength. It's about outsmarting the vultures circling you. You take a deep breath, steeling yourself, and step toward the boarding house, praying you don't get fleeced, or worse. You're weaving through the boomtown's chaotic streets, the boarding house's promise of a bed fading as you realize you've got nothing to barter but a tattered blanket and a dull knife. The Wild West doesn't care about your desperation, and now it's throwing a new challenge your way, a horse. You spot a scruffy mare tied outside a livery stable, its owner nowhere in sight. You've heard cowboys ride these things like it's second nature, but you're no cowboy. Still, if you want to cover ground and escape this town's scams, you need to saddle up. Problem is, you've never ridden anything wilder than a bicycle, and this horse looks like it's got a grudge. The mare snorts as you approach, her eyes glinting with what you swear is sarcasm. You pat her flank, hoping to seem confident, but she flicks her tail, smacking your hand. Historical fact: in the 1870s, horses were the backbone of the frontier, used for everything from cattle drives to mail delivery. But untrained riders often ended up injured or stranded. Quirky tidbit: some cowboys believed rubbing a horse's ears with whiskey would calm it. Probably worked better on the rider. Historians still argue whether poor horsemanship or bad trails caused more accidents, but you're about to tip the scales toward the former. You untie the reins, fumbling with the knot, and glance around. The street's busy, but no one's watching. Yet. You grab the saddle horn, put one foot in the stirrup, and haul yourself up. For a glorious second, you're mounted, feeling like a dime novel hero. Then the mare sidesteps, and you're clinging to her neck, legs flailing. She bucks, not hard, but enough to send you sprawling into the dirt. The impact jars your teeth, and a passing miner laughs. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy try riding? To eat dust for dinner. You scramble up, cheeks burning, and try again. This time, you manage to stay on, gripping the reins like they're your lifeline. You nudge the mare with your heels, expecting a gentle trot. Instead, she lurches into a choppy gait that rattles your bones. You're bouncing like a sack of potatoes, your backside slamming against the saddle. The stable's owner, a grizzled man with a tobacco-stained beard, appears, shouting, "Who said you could take my horse?" You stammer an apology, but he's not listening, just glaring. You slide off, nearly twisting an ankle, and hand over the reins. He mutters about greenhorns and stalks away, leaving you in the dust again. You're starting to see why horses are for experts. Your legs ache, and your pride's taken a worse beating than your body. You think back to that rattlesnake, its cold efficiency. Horses aren't much friendlier. You need to move on, but walking's slow, and the town's dangers are closing in. You spot another horse, this one calmer, tied near a saloon. You're tempted, but the memory of that bucking mare stops you. Instead, you ask a passing cowboy for advice. He spits, sizing you up. Don't grip so tight, and move with the horse, not against it. You nod, but it's like being told to dance with a tornado. You give it one more shot, approaching the calmer horse. You mount slowly, remembering the cowboy's words. This time, you stay loose, letting your hips sway with the mare's steps. She walks a few paces, and you're still on. Victory? Not quite. A loud shout from the saloon spooks her, and she rears, tossing you into a pile of manure. The crowd roars, and you're the punchline again. Joke number 2. What's a greenhorn's first ride? A one-way trip to the ground. You limp away, reeking and humiliated. The town's no safer, and now you're bruised on top of hungry and thirsty. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his promises of adventure. If you ever see him, you'll feed him to a horse. The buzzard's back, circling like it's taking bets on your next disaster. Keep laughing, you mutter, wiping manure from your sleeve. You need a new plan. Riding's not it. Maybe you'll try hitching a ride with a wagon, but that's another gamble in this unforgiving land. Night's closing in, and the town's getting rowdier. You're too sore to keep wandering, but stopping feels like inviting trouble. You find a quiet alley, hoping to rest, but the memory of that saloon fight keeps you on edge. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so welcoming? It's got a horse for every fool. You force a chuckle, but it's weak. You're not a rider, not a survivor, just a battered drifter, praying you can outlast one more day in this brutal frontier. You're limping away from the boomtown, the stench of manure still clinging to your clothes, your dreams of riding off like a cowboy shattered by that ornery mare. The Wild West's not done with you yet, though. The plains stretch out again, but the sky's turning ugly, dark clouds rolling in, heavy with menace. A cold wind slices through your thin jacket, and before you can find shelter, snowflakes start falling, thick and fast. A blizzard's hitting, and you're caught in the open, your battered body no match for the biting cold. The frontier's flipping from scorching to freezing, and you're about to learn how quickly nature can turn traitor. The snow's piling up, stinging your face like tiny needles. Your boots, already worn thin, soak through in minutes, and your toes go numb. You're shivering so hard, your teeth chatter, and the wind howls like it's laughing at your misery. Historical fact: blizzards in the 1870s Great Plains, like the infamous school children's blizzard of 1888, killed hundreds, catching settlers off guard with sudden, brutal cold. Quirky tidbit: some pioneers stuffed newspapers in their clothes for insulation. About as cozy as hugging a cactus. Historians still argue whether poor preparation or unpredictable weather claimed more lives. But you're too busy freezing to care. You stumble forward, squinting through the whiteout. The plains are a featureless void now, every landmark buried under snow. You need shelter, fast, but there's nothing but grass and the occasional scrub bush, already dusted white. Your blanket's damp, useless against this cold, and your knife's no help unless you plan to carve an igloo. You think back to that boomtown saloon, its smoky warmth. Should have stayed, scams and all. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy brave a blizzard? To prove he's dumber than the snow. Your fingers are stiff, barely able to grip your pack. You try wrapping the blanket around your shoulders, but the wind rips it loose, flapping like a soggy flag. You're losing heat fast, and your breath's coming in short, painful gasps. You've heard of hypothermia, your body shutting down, lulling you into a deadly sleep. You shake your head, muttering, "Not yet." But your voice is swallowed by the storm. You spot a slight dip in the ground, maybe a dry wash, and stumble toward it, hoping it'll block the wind. You collapse into the wash, curling up against the embankment. It's barely shelter, but it's something. The snow's piling around you, and you're starting to feel oddly warm, a bad sign. You force yourself to move, rubbing your hands together, but they're clumsy, like they belong to someone else. You think about that buzzard from days ago, probably snug somewhere while you're turning into a snowman. Joke number 2. What's a blizzard's favorite cowboy? The one who's already a popsicle. You dig through your pack, hoping for anything useful. Nothing but that useless map, now a soggy mess. You stuff it inside your shirt anyway, remembering that quirky newspaper trick. It's scratchy and does nothing for the cold creeping into your bones. You're starting to see things. Flickers of light, maybe a campfire, maybe your mind playing tricks. You blink, and it's gone. The storm's relentless, burying your hope as fast as it buries the plains. You're not just fighting the cold, you're fighting despair. And it's winning. You try to stand, but your legs are lead. You crawl instead, clawing through the snow, searching for anything. A tree, a rock, a miracle. The wind's a banshee, screaming in your ears, and your eyelashes are crusted with ice. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his promises of glory. If you survive, you'll hunt him down, and make him eat this snow. Joke number 3. Why is the Wild West so chilly? It's got a heart of ice and a wind to match. You force a weak chuckle, but it's more of a sob. Night's falling, though it's hard to tell through the storm. You're not sure how long you can last. You huddle tighter, burying your face in your arms to shield it from the snow. You're starting to drift, your thoughts fuzzy, like you're sinking into a dream. You jerk yourself awake, heart pounding. You can't sleep. Not now, not here. You sing to yourself, a shaky tune from childhood, anything to stay alert. The blizzard doesn't care. It's patient, blanketing the world in white, waiting for you to give up. You're not a survivor, just a fool caught in the Wild West's frozen jaws, praying for dawn. You're huddled in that snowy wash, the blizzard's howl fading to a dull roar as your body fights to stay awake. The cold's a thief, stealing your strength, but dawn's creeping in, and the snow's slowing. You crawl out, half frozen, your clothes stiff as boards. The plains are a white wasteland, but you spot a dark ribbon in the distance, a river, swollen and angry from the storm. You need to cross it to keep moving, maybe find warmth or food, but the water's a churning beast, and one slip could drag you under forever. The Wild West's throwing another gauntlet, and you're barely standing. You stumble toward the river, your boots crunching through fresh snow. The air's still bitter, but the wind's eased, letting you see the water's edge. It's wide, maybe 50 yards, with frothy rapids that roar like a caged animal. Driftwood and ice chunks bob in the current, a reminder of what happens to anything caught in its grip. Historical fact. In the 1870s, river crossings were deadly for pioneers, with many wagon trains losing lives to swift currents or hypothermia. Quirky tidbit. Some settlers tied themselves to their oxen to cross, hoping the beast's strength would save them. Spoiler, it often didn't. Historians still argue whether misjudging rivers or poor equipment caused more drownings. But you're too busy shivering to debate. You scan for a shallower spot, but the banks are steep, lined with slick mud. Your knife's useless here, and your blanket's a soggy weight. You think back to that boomtown. Its scams feeling cozy compared to this. You need to cross. Staying put means freezing. But the river's not forgiving. You spot a fallen log upstream, half submerged, and consider using it as a bridge. Bad idea. It's slick with ice, and one misstep means your fish food. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy eye the river? To swim with the ice cubes. You decide to wade, picking a spot where the water looks calmer. You strip off your boots, tying them around your neck, and step in. The cold's a shock, like knives slicing your shins. You gasp, nearly falling, but keep going, feeling for rocks with your numb feet. The current tugs, stronger than it looked, and you're only knee-deep. You grip your blanket, using it as a makeshift rope to steady yourself. Halfway across, the water's up to your thighs, and you're shaking so hard you can barely move. You think about that buzzard, probably watching from a tree, betting on the river to win. A wave slaps your hip and you stumble, catching yourself on a boulder. Your hands are too cold to grip properly, and the rock's slimy. You're starting to panic, your breath hitching. You remember hearing about settlers who drowned because they didn't know a river's depth. You're not swimming, you're barely wading, but the current's relentless. Joke number 2. What's a river's favorite cowboy? The one who can't float. You force a weak grin, but your teeth are chattering too hard to laugh. You push forward, the water now at your waist. Your legs are numb, and the current's pulling like it's got plans for you. You spot the far bank, maybe 10 yards away, and focus on it, willing yourself to keep moving. A branch slams into your side and you yelp, nearly losing your balance. You grab it, using it to brace against the current. It's not much, but it's enough to get you a few steps closer. You're almost there, the bank sloping up, when your foot slips on a mossy rock. You go down, plunging chest deep, and the cold steals your breath. You thrash, clawing at the water, and somehow find the bank. You haul yourself out, coughing and soaked, your body a block of ice. You collapse in the mud, gasping, too cold to care about the filth. You're across, but at what cost? Your blanket's drenched, your boots are waterlogged, and you're shaking like a leaf. You think back to that trader in St. Louis, his lies about easy trails. If you survive, you'll make him swim this river. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so wet? It's got rivers with a grudge. You chuckle, but it's more a wheeze. You need to move, get warm, but your body's sluggish, your clothes freezing to your skin. You wring out the blanket, but it's useless. The sun's peeking through the clouds, but it's weak, offering no heat. You're starting to realize survival's a cruel math problem. Every choice costs something, and you're running out of currency. You stagger upright, scanning for shelter, praying the river's the last of today's tests. The Wild West's watching, indifferent, as you limp forward, a soggy fool in a land that punishes weakness. You're dripping wet, shivering on the riverbank, your clothes heavy with icy water as the Wild West's next challenge glints in the weak sunlight. Gold. The river's behind you, but rumors of a nearby strike pull you toward a rocky hillside dotted with miners' claims. You're no prospector, but the thought of striking it rich, food, a warm bed, a way out, lights a desperate spark. You trudge toward the mines, your soggy blanket dragging like a chain. But these shafts are treacherous, carved by greed and ready to collapse. And you're about to learn that gold fever's as dangerous as any blizzard or bandit. The hillside's a mess of tents, pickaxes, and men with wild eyes, shouting about nuggets the size of walnuts. The air smells of damp earth and dynamite, and the ground's scarred with pits and tailings. You've got no tools, just your rusty knife and a growling stomach, but you figure you'll scavenge a claim someone abandoned. Historical fact: in the 1870s, gold rushes like the Black Hills boom drew thousands, but most miners went bust, losing everything to bad claims or cave-ins. Quirky tidbit: some prospectors used divining rods to find gold, waving sticks like they were wizards, about as useful as a paper umbrella. Historians still argue whether greed or bad luck ruined more miners, but you're too hungry to care. You spot a deserted shaft, its entrance sagging like a drunk's grin. You duck inside, hoping for leftover scraps of ore. The air's damp, heavy with mildew, and the tunnel's so dark you're blind past a few feet. You fumble forward, your boots squelching, and run your hands along the walls, feeling for anything shiny. The shaft narrows, and the ceiling brushes your head. You're starting to rethink this. A faint creak echoes, and you freeze. Cave-ins aren't just stories. Miners die when these tunnels collapse. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy go mining? To get buried in style. You keep going, because turning back means admitting defeat. Your knife's useless here, but you use it to chip at a vein of quartz, hoping it's laced with gold. It's not. Just rock, cold and unyielding. You're sweating despite the chill, your breath loud in the tight space. You think back to that boomtown. Its scams almost cozy compared to this tomb. A loose pebble falls and you flinch, heart racing. You're not alone. Bats flutter somewhere deeper, their squeaks like tiny alarms. You're starting to see why most miners quit or died trying. You find a wider chamber, lit by a sliver of light from a crack above. There's a pickaxe, rusted but usable, left by some poor soul. You swing it, clumsy, and sparks fly as it bites the wall. Your arms ache after 3 swings, but you keep at it, driven by visions of a fat nugget. The rock gives way, revealing nothing, just more stone. Your stomach twists, and you slump against the wall, gasping. Joke number 2. What's a miner's favorite dream? Gold that doesn't fight back. You'd laugh, but you're too tired. A low rumble stops you cold. The ground shifts and dirt sifts from the ceiling. You bolt for the entrance, pickaxe forgotten as the rumble grows. You dive out just as a cloud of dust billows behind you. The shaft doesn't collapse, but it's close. You're on your knees, coughing, your blanket coated in grime. You're alive, but gold's a pipe dream. You think about that buzzard, probably circling, laughing at your greed. Keep waiting, you mutter, but your voice is hoarse. You stagger away from the mine, the hillside's chaos fading as you realize you've got nothing to show for it. No gold, no food, just bruises and a wet blanket. You spot a miner roasting a rabbit over a fire, and your mouth waters, but he glares, hand on his pistol. You back off, remembering the Boomtown's lesson. Trust no one. You're starting to hate this land. Its promises as empty as these shafts. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so rich? It's got gold, just not for you. You force a chuckle, but it's bitter. Night's creeping in, and you need shelter, food, anything. You're too weak to keep wandering, but the mines are no answer. You spot a trail leading away, maybe to a settlement, maybe to more trouble. You limp toward it, clutching your knife, praying for a break. The Wild West doesn't care about your prayers, though. It's a land of broken dreams, and you're just another fool chasing its glitter, one step from being buried. You're limping away from the collapsed mine. Your dreams of gold dust as dead as the rocks you left behind. The Wild West's latest curveball isn't a storm or a snake, it's people. You stumble across a faint trail, and in the distance, you see figures moving. A small Native American encampment, their teepees stark against the plains. Your heart's a tangle of hope and fear. You need help, food, water, a moment's rest, but you're a stranger, and out here, that's a dangerous thing to be. You're about to learn that encounters with native tribes can swing from peace to peril, and you've got no clue which way this one's going. The camp's small, maybe a dozen people, with horses grazing nearby and a fire sending up thin smoke. You approach slowly, hands raised, your rusty knife tucked in your belt to avoid looking threatening. The air smells of sage and roasted meat, and your stomach twists with hunger. Historical fact: in the 1870s, tensions between settlers and native tribes like the Lakota or Apache were high, with conflicts often sparked by broken treaties or land disputes. Quirky tidbit: some tribes used smoke signals, not just for communication, but to confuse intruders. Imagine getting lost chasing a puff of smoke. Historians still argue whether misunderstandings or outright aggression caused more bloodshed, but you're just praying for a kind word. A young man spots you, his face unreadable. He calls out, and others turn, women pausing their work, an older man with a braided scalp lock eyeing you warily. You stammer, "I mean no harm," but your voice is hoarse and you're not sure they understand. You point to your mouth, hoping they'll see your hunger. The older man steps forward, his hand on a knife, and you freeze. You think back to that river crossing, its cold grip. Surviving that feels pointless if this goes south. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy wave at strangers? To dodge arrows instead of bullets. The young man says something in a language you don't know, then gestures for you to sit. You do, knees shaking, as a woman hands you a small piece of dried meat. It's tough, but you chew gratefully, the salt waking your senses. You're not safe yet, though. The older man's still watching, and you're hyper-aware of your tattered blanket, your pale face, your everything screaming outsider. You try a smile, but it feels like a grimace. They're not attacking, but they're not rolling out a welcome mat either. You're a curiosity, maybe a risk. You notice their camp's orderly, hide bundles, a few rifles, a child peeking from a tipi. You're struck by their resilience, living off this harsh land while you're barely scraping by. You want to ask for water, but you don't know how without offending. You point to your canteen, empty since the desert, and the young man nods, filling it from a skin bag. The water's cool, earthy, and you drink too fast, nearly choking. They murmur among themselves, and you catch a word. Maybe fool. You're not arguing. The older man speaks, his tone sharp, and the young man translates. "Why are you here?" You fumble for an answer, saying you're lost, looking for a town. It's half true, but you're not sure it lands. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his lies about empty lands. This camp proves him wrong, and you're paying for it. Joke number 2. What's the Wild West's biggest lie? That it's got room for everyone. You keep that to yourself, not daring to laugh. The mood shifts. Another man rides in, his horse lathered, and the camp tenses. He glares at you, barking something, and the older man holds up a hand, calming things. You're starting to feel like a spark in a dry barn. You stand, slowly, thanking them with a nod, and point down the trail, hoping they'll let you go. The young man nods back, but the rider's still staring, his hand near a bow. You back away, heart pounding, clutching your canteen like it's gold. You're 100 yards out when you hear hoofbeats behind you. You spin, expecting an arrow, but it's just a lone horse, riderless, trotting off. You exhale, shaking. You're not dead, but you're not welcome either. The buzzard's back, circling high, probably annoyed you're still breathing. Tough luck, you mutter. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so picky? It only likes guests who don't stay. You force a grin, but your nerves are shot. You keep walking, the camp fading behind you. You've got water and a scrap of meat, but you're still lost, still vulnerable. The plains stretch on, indifferent, and you're starting to see the West for what it is. A land that tests everyone, native or not, and spits out the weak. You grip your knife, praying the trail leads somewhere safe. But deep down, you know safety's a myth out here. You're trudging away from the native encampment, the taste of dried meat lingering like a faint promise. But your body's betraying you now. A fever's creeping in, hot and heavy, making your skin clammy despite the cool plains air. Your head throbs, your joints ache, and each step feels like wading through mud. The Wild West's not just testing your strength, it's attacking from within. There's no doctor out here, no pharmacy, just you and whatever folk remedies you can scrape together. You're sick, alone, and the frontier's about to teach you how fragile you are when a cough can kill. The plains are quiet, save for the rustle of grass and your own ragged breathing. You're sweating, then shivering, your tattered blanket barely keeping the chill at bay. Your canteen's got a little water left, but it's not enough to fight this heat burning through you. Historical fact. In the 1870s, diseases like cholera and typhoid decimated settlers, spreading through contaminated water or poor sanitation. Quirky tidbit. Some pioneers swore by onion poultices, slapping raw onions on their chests to draw out illness. Smelly and about as useful as a paper hat in a rainstorm. Historians still argue whether lack of medical knowledge or scarce resources killed more, but you're too dizzy to care. You stumble to a stop, leaning against a scrubby tree. Your vision's blurry, and the horizon tilts like a bad dream. You think back to that river crossing, its icy grip. Maybe that's what did you in. Or maybe it's just the West's way of saying you're not tough enough. You fumble for your knife, not for defense, but to cut a strip of blanket to tie around your forehead, hoping it'll soak up the sweat. It doesn't help. You need something, anything, to break this fever. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy get sick? The West wanted to spice up his misery. You remember hearing about willow bark supposed to ease fevers. You scan the ground, but there's no willow, just dry grass and thorns. You settle for a handful of sage leaves, crushing them and sniffing, hoping they're medicinal. They're not, and the sharp scent makes you sneeze, which turns into a hacking cough. You're starting to scare yourself. You're alone, miles from help, and the buzzard's back, circling like it smells your weakness. Not yet, you rasp, but your voice is a whisper, lost in the wind. You force yourself to keep moving, though your legs wobble. You need shelter, a fire, something to dry your clothes and warm your bones. You spot a cluster of rocks, maybe enough to block the breeze, and stagger toward it. Your pack's lighter now, your useless map's gone, lost in the river. But the weight of this fever's heavier than anything you've carried. You think about that native camp, their fire and food. Should have begged to stay, but pride and fear pushed you on. Joke number 2. What's a sick cowboy's worst enemy? His own stubborn streak. You reach the rocks and collapse, curling up with your blanket. You try to start a fire, scraping your knife against a flint you found days ago, but your hands shake too much. Sparks flicker, then die. You're too weak, too foggy, and the cold's seeping deeper. You chew another sage leaf, desperate, but it's like eating dust. You've heard of settlers boiling roots or drinking whiskey to fight sickness, but you've got no roots, no whiskey, just a fading will to keep going. Your eyes are heavy, and you're starting to drift, but you jerk awake, terrified of what sleep might mean. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his promises of adventure. If you survive, you'll make him choke on those sage leaves. The fever's making you mean, Or maybe it's just the West rubbing off on you. You try singing to stay awake, a shaky tune, but it turns into another cough. The rocks around you blur, and you're seeing things. Your old home, a warm bed, a glass of water. You blink, and it's just the plains, cold and cruel. Joke number 3. Why is the Wild West so healthy? It's got a cure for everything: death. You force a laugh, but it's more a groan. Night's falling, and the stars are sharp, mocking your fevered haze. You need to fight this, find help, but you're not sure you can stand. You clutch your knife, more for comfort than use, and pray the fever breaks before you do. The Wild West's a brutal doctor, and you're its latest patient, teetering on the edge of a diagnosis you can't afford. You pull the blanket tighter, shivering, and whisper to yourself to keep going, but the plains don't answer. You're slumped against those rocks, fever burning through you like a wildfire, the Wild West's indifference colder than the night air. Your shaky hands clutch the damp blanket, but it's no match for the chills rattling your bones. You're too weak to wander alone anymore, so when you spot a faint trail of wagon ruts leading toward a distant campfire, you drag yourself upright. It's a wagon train, settlers headed west. Maybe your ticket to food, warmth, or a kind soul with a cure. But as you stumble closer, you see the truth. These wagons are creaking relics. The settlers bickering, and distrust hangs thicker than the smoke. You're joining a rolling mess, and the frontier's about to show you that even company can be a curse. The camp's a circle of canvas-covered wagons, oxen lowing as a few men argue over a broken axle. You approach, coughing, and a woman with a tired face spots you. She hesitates, then offers a tin cup of watery stew. It's thin, but you gulp it down, the warmth easing your fever's grip for a moment. Historical fact: in the 1870s, wagon trains like the Oregon Trail saw thousands of settlers face breakdowns, disease, and infighting, with many never reaching their destination. Quirky tidbit: some pioneers used prairie coal, dried buffalo dung, for fires, which smelled as bad as you'd expect. Historians still argue whether mechanical failures or human conflict derailed more trains, but you're betting on the latter as voices rise nearby. You thank the woman, but a burly man with a patchy beard glares, muttering about extra mouths. You're not welcome, you're tolerated. You offer to help, hoping to earn your keep, but your fever makes you clumsy. You try hauling water, but you spill half the bucket, earning a curse from a teen boy. The camp's a powder keg of frayed nerves, and you're a stranger, easy to blame. You think back to that native camp, its tense but quiet order. Compared to this chaos, it was a palace. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy join a wagon train? To trade one disaster for another. The wagon master, a wiry man with a limp, calls a meeting. They're stuck until the axle's fixed and supplies are low. You listen, huddled by the fire, but eyes keep darting your way. You're coughing again, and the woman who fed you now looks worried, whispering to her husband. They think you're contagious. Great. You try to explain it's just a fever, but your voice is weak, and fear's louder than truth. You're starting to see why these trains fell apart. Trust is scarcer than water out here. You grip your knife, not for a fight, but to feel less helpless. Work resumes, and you're tasked with gathering firewood. You stumble into the dark, your fever blurring the stars. You find a few sticks, but a creak behind you makes you spin. A man from the train, watching. "Don't steal nothin'," he growls. You nod, heart racing, and hurry back. The fire's dying, and your measly bundle doesn't help. The wagon master snaps at you, and you shrink back, feeling like a kid caught slacking. Joke number 2. What's a wagon train's biggest rule? Don't trust the guy with the cough. You force a weak chuckle, but it turns into a hack. Night deepens, and the camp settles, but tension lingers. You're allowed to sleep near the fire, but no one shares a blanket, and your own is still damp. You overhear whispers. Some want to leave you behind. Your fever's not breaking, and you're too weak to argue your case. You think about that buzzard, probably perched nearby, betting you won't last the week. "Keep waiting," you mutter. but your voice is a croak. The stew's sitting heavy, and you're not sure if it's helping or making you sicker. You try sipping from your canteen, but it's nearly empty again. A shout jolts you awake. Someone's spotted tracks nearby, maybe outlaws, maybe natives. The camp's on edge, rifles grabbed, and you're useless, too shaky to hold a weapon. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his promises of safe trails. If you survive, you'll make him eat that broken axle. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so cozy? It's got a wagon train for every fool. You manage a grim smile, but your body's screaming for rest. You curl up, praying the train moves on soon. But deep down, you know this group's as likely to save you as it is to ditch you. The frontier's a cruel host, and you're just a guest who's overstayed. You're curled up by the wagon train's dying fire, fever still gnawing at you, the settlers' whispers of distrust fading into the night's uneasy quiet. The Wild West's got a new way to test you. You're tasked with guarding the camp's cattle under a starlit sky, your shaky hands clutching a borrowed rifle you barely know how to use. The herd's restless, lowing softly, but the real threat's out there. Rustlers, ready to strike and leave you defenseless. You're no rancher, just a sick drifter trying to prove your worth, and the frontier's about to show you how fast a quiet night can turn deadly. The air's crisp, smelling of damp grass and cowhide, the plains stretching into shadows that could hide anything. You're perched on a low hill, the cattle spread out below, their silhouettes blending with the dark. Your fever's dulled, but your head's still foggy, and the rifle's weight makes your arms ache. Historical fact: in the 1870s, cattle rustling was rampant, with outlaws like the Cochise gang stealing herds to sell across the Mexican border. Quirky tidbit: some ranchers branded their cattle with bizarre symbols, like a flying W, hoping to confuse thieves, about as effective as a lock on a paper door. Historians still argue whether rustlers were driven by profit or survival, but you're too busy scanning the dark to care. You shift, trying to stay alert, but your eyes are heavy. The wagon master warned you to watch for movement, but every rustle, grass, wind, a stray calf, makes you jump. You think back to that native camp. It's tense but orderly calm. This job's worse. You're alone, exposed, and the cattle are worth more than you are. A faint snap cracks the silence, and you grip the rifle, heart pounding. Is it a coyote? A rustler? You squint, seeing nothing but shadows. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy guard the herd? To lose it before dawn. You stand, hoping movement keeps you awake. Your boots crunch on gravel, and a steer snorts, startled. You freeze, not wanting to spook the herd. The wagon train's a dim glow behind you, too far to call for help. You're starting to hate this rifle. It's heavy, cold, and you're not sure you could hit a barn, let alone a thief. A low whistle cuts through the night, sharp and human. You spin, raising the rifle, but your hands shake, and the barrel wobbles. "Who's there?" you croak, voice barely carrying. No answer, just another whistle. Closer. You back toward the herd, praying it's a prank by some bored settler. Then you see them. 3 figures on horseback, moving fast, cutting through the cattle. Rustlers. They're driving the herd, and you're supposed to stop them. You fire a shot into the air, the recoil nearly knocking you over. The cattle stampede, hooves thundering, and you dive behind a rock as dust chokes the air. The rustlers don't even glance your way. They're gone, taking half the herd. You're useless, and the wagon master's going to have your hide. Joke number 2. What's a rustler's favorite cowboy? The one who shoots at the moon. You stumble back to camp, coughing, the rifle dragging. The settlers are awake, shouting, blaming you. The wagon master grabs the gun, his face red. Couldn't even keep him in sight? You try to explain, the fever, the dark, but he's not listening. You're not one of them, just a liability who let their wealth run off. You think about that buzzard, probably feasting on some other fool's failure. Keep circling, you mutter, but your spirit's as low as your fever's high. The camp's in chaos, men saddling horses to chase the rustlers, but you're left behind, too weak to join. The woman who gave you stew shakes her head. pity mixed with scorn. You slump by the fire, the night's chill seeping in. You're starting to see the West's cruel math. One mistake, and you're out. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his lies about easy money. If you survive, you'll make him guard a herd in the dark. Joke number 3. Why is the Wild West so fair? It screws everyone equally. You force a bitter chuckle, but it's hollow. Dawn's breaking, and the camp's still buzzing with anger. You're not sure if they'll kick you out or just ignore you, but you need to stay useful. You grip your knife, more for comfort than defense, and pray the rustlers don't come back. The plains are wide, the stars cold, and you're just a fevered drifter, learning the hard way that the frontier doesn't forgive amateurs. You're slumped by the wagon train's fire, the sting of failure from the rustlers' raid burning hotter than your fading fever. The settlers' glares weigh heavy, but the Wild West's got no time for your shame. A new threat's brewing, a dust storm, roaring across the plains like a living beast. The sky's turned sickly yellow, and the air's thick with grit before you can even stand. Your blanket's barely dry, your knife's useless, and now you're caught in a choking whirlwind that's burying your gear and your hope. The frontier's reminding you, yet again, that nature's the cruelest outlaw of all. The wind hits like a fist, flinging sand into your eyes and mouth. You cough, tasting dirt, and pull your blanket over your face. But it's no shield. The storm's a monster, blotting out the sun, turning day to dusk. The settlers scramble, tying down wagons, but you're on your own, staggering toward a rocky outcrop for cover. Historical fact? In the 1870s, dust storms on the Great Plains could last days, destroying crops and suffocating livestock, with settlers often lost in the blinding chaos. Quirky tidbit. Some pioneers tied ropes between their homes and barns to avoid getting lost in storms. Imagine playing a deadly game of follow the string. Historians still argue whether storms or drought killed more dreams on the frontier, but you're too busy choking to care. You reach the rocks, huddling low as the wind screams. Sand stings your skin like 1,000 tiny wasps, and your blanket's flapping, threatening to rip away. You think back to that blizzard, its icy bite. Now it's dirt instead of snow, but the West's just swapping one torture for another. Your canteen's buried somewhere in your pack, but you can't see to find it. The air's so thick you're breathing mud and your lungs burn with every gasp. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy face a dust storm? To get a face full of regret. You try to anchor yourself, clutching a boulder, but the storm's relentless, piling grit around you like a grave. Your eyes are crusted shut, and you're blinking back tears that turn to sludge. The settlers' shouts are faint, swallowed by the howl. You're not sure if they're safe or scattered, and part of you, bitter from the rustler fiasco, wonders if they'd even care if you vanished. You think about that buzzard, probably riding the storm's edge, waiting for you to choke. Not today, you rasp, but the words stick in your throat. You fumble for your pack, hoping to salvage something. Your knife, a scrap of cloth, anything. The storm's stolen half your gear, and what's left is coated in dust. You wrap a torn strip of blanket around your face, bandit style, and it helps a little, though you still taste the plains with every breath. You're starting to see why settlers went mad out here. Hunger, fever, and now this. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his lies about open land. If you survive, you'll bury him in this sand. Joke number 2. What's a dust storm's favorite cowboy? The one who's already half buried. The storm's not letting up, and you're losing track of time. Minutes? Hours? You're curled tight, trying to breathe shallow. But your chest's heavy, like you're drowning on dry land. You hear a crack. Maybe a wagon tipping, maybe a tree snapping, and flinch, praying it's not coming for you. You're starting to hallucinate again, seeing shapes in the swirling dust. A saloon, a river, your old life. You shake your head, forcing focus, but it's hard when you're this battered. You're not just fighting the storm, you're fighting to remember why you're still trying. The wind dips, just for a moment, and you risk a glance. The world's a brown blur, but you spot the wagon train's faint outline, maybe 100 yards off. You could try to reach it, but the storm could surge again, and you're not sure you've got the strength. You think about that native camp. their fire's warmth. Should have stayed, fever or not. Joke number 3. Why is the Wild West so dusty? It's got a grudge and a shovel. You force a weak chuckle, but it's lost in a cough. You decide to stay put, digging yourself deeper against the rock. The storm's got to end eventually, right? You're not sure you believe it, but hope's all you've got. Your body's screaming, thirst, exhaustion, the grit in every crease of your skin, but you're still here, still breathing, even if it's through a rag. The Wild West's trying to bury you, but you're not ready to be a ghost. You grip your knife, more for defiance than use, and wait, praying the dust clears before you're just another pile of dirt on the plains. The dust storm's finally dying, leaving you coughing and coated in grit, huddled against that rocky outcrop. The Wild West's air is clear again, but your body's a wreck. Fever lingering, throat raw from swallowing sand. You stagger back to the wagon train, only to find it battered, with torn canvas and scattered gear. The settlers barely glance your way, too busy salvaging their own lives. You're on your own again, and night's falling fast. You decide to make camp alone. A lone campfire, your only comfort. But the plains are alive with coyote howls and unseen eyes that keep sleep at bay. The frontier's reminding you that solitude's as deadly as any storm. You find a small clearing, far enough from the train to avoid their scorn, but close enough to feel less exposed. You gather a few sticks, your hands still shaky, and use your flint to spark a fire. The flames are weak, but there's something, casting flickering shadows on the grass. The air smells of smoke and sage, but the coyote's yips cut through, sharp and too close. Historical fact. In the 1870s, coyotes were a constant threat to lone campers, often stealing food or attacking weakened travelers. Quirky tidbit. Some settlers believed hanging a tin can in a tree would scare coyotes off, about as useful as singing them a lullaby. Historians still argue whether fear or actual attacks caused more sleepless nights, but you're too jumpy to care. You sit, clutching your knife, the fire's warmth barely reaching your chilled bones. Your blanket's a dusty rag now, and your canteen's got one sip left. You're starving again. The memory of that wagon train stew a cruel taunt. Every crackle of the fire makes you flinch, and the coyotes' howls are circling, like they're placing bets on your survival. You think back to that dust storm, its choking grip. Somehow, this quiet feels worse, like the West's holding its breath before pouncing. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy light a fire? To invite every critter to dinner. You toss another stick on the flames, trying to keep them high. You've heard coyotes go for easy prey, and you're about as easy as it gets. Sick, weak, alone. You scan the dark, catching glints that might be eyes or just starlight on dew. Your fever's making you paranoid, or maybe the West's just that cruel. You try humming to calm your nerves, but it comes out shaky, drowned by a howl that's way too near. You grip your knife tighter, though it's no match for a pack. You're starting to see why settlers traveled in groups. Solitude's a death wish out here. A rustle in the grass stops your heart. You stand, brandishing a burning stick, and shout, "Get lost!" Your voice cracks, but the rustle stops. You don't know if it was a coyote or just the wind, but you're not taking chances. You pile more wood on the fire, the smoke stinging your eyes. You think about that buzzard, probably watching, annoyed you're still kicking. "Keep waiting," you mutter, but your bravado's thin. You're not a frontiersman, just a scared drifter, praying the night doesn't eat you alive. Joke number 2. What's a coyote's favorite cowboy? The one who camps alone. You try to rest, leaning against a rock, but every sound's a threat. You're too wired to sleep, your fever spiking again, making the stars blur. You think about that native camp, their fire's steady glow. Should have begged to stay, pride be damned. Now you're here, with nothing but a flickering flame and a knife that's more rust than blade. You sip your last drop of water, savoring it, and wonder how long you can last. The coyotes howl again, a chorus that feels personal, like they're singing your obituary. You're starting to hallucinate, shadows moving, voices whispering. You shake your head, forcing focus, But it's hard when you're this broken. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his lies about freedom. If you survive, you'll make him camp out here with the coyotes. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so musical? It's got a coyote choir for every fool. You force a weak chuckle, but it's more a sigh. You pull your blanket closer, the fire's heat fading, and pray dawn comes before the howls get closer. The plains are watching, cold and patient, and you're just a spark in the dark, flickering against a land that's never kind. Your campfire's down to embers, the coyote howls fading into an eerie quiet that's somehow worse. You're shivering, fever spiking again, the Wild West's night wrapping you in a cold that seeps into your soul. You can't stay here, exposed and alone, so you kick dirt over the fire and stumble toward a new rumor. A ghost town, abandoned after its mine went bust. Its skeletal remains loom in the moonlight, promising shelter but whispering danger. You're too desperate to care, but as you step into its empty streets, the air grows heavy with eerie whispers, and you're about to learn that even dead towns can feel alive with menace. The town's a husk of sagging shacks and a lone saloon, its sign creaking in the breeze. Windows gape like empty eyes, and the dust under your boots feels like it's holding its breath. You clutch your rusty knife, your blanket dragging like a ghost's chain. Historical fact: in the 1870s, ghost towns like Bodie or Tombstone's lesser cousins dotted the West, abandoned when gold or silver veins dried up, leaving behind ruins and stories of hauntings. Quirky tidbit: some prospectors left cursed tools behind, believing bad luck clung to their picks. Imagine blaming your shovel for going broke. Historians still argue whether economic busts or fear of cursed land drove more towns to ruin, but you're too spooked to care. You push into the saloon, the door groaning like it's warning you to leave. Inside, it's dark, smelling of rot and old whiskey. Broken bottles litter the floor, and a cracked mirror reflects your haggard face, making you jump. You think back to that wagon train, its chaos almost cozy compared to this. You need shelter, maybe food left behind, but every creak feels like a step behind you. You whisper, "Just the wind," but your heart's not buying it. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy visit a ghost town? To make friends with the shadows. You rummage behind the bar, hoping for a forgotten can of beans. Your hands shake, fever making the room spin, and you knock over a glass, the shatter loud as a gunshot. You freeze, listening for... what? Ghosts? Outlaws? The silence is worse, thick with menace. You find a dusty tin, but it's empty, just like your hope. You're starting to feel watched, the air prickling your neck. You think about that buzzard, probably perched nearby, betting on you to crack. "Keep waiting," you mutter, but your voice echoes, mocking you. You move to a back room, finding a rotting mattress and a tattered curtain. You could rest here, but the whispers, real or not, are louder now, like voices just out of reach. You're not superstitious, but this place feels wrong, like it's holding grudges. You think about that native camp, their fire's warmth. Should have stayed, fever or not. You try to laugh it off, but it's shaky. Joke number 2. What's a ghost town's best trick? Making you scare yourself silly. You decide to explore one more building, a boarded-up general store. The door's stuck, but you pry it open with your knife, the wood splintering. Inside, it's a maze of overturned shelves and cobwebs. You find a single jar of pickled eggs, cracked but unopened. You're so hungry, you don't care if they're bad. You pop one in your mouth, gagging on the vinegary slime. It's food, barely, and you force it down. A low moan stops you cold, not the wind, not your imagination. You spin, knife raised, but see nothing but dust motes dancing in moonlight. You're starting to crack, fever and fear blurring reality. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his lies about opportunity. If you survive, you'll drag him here to sleep in this ruin. The whispers are back, and you're not sure if they're in your head or the walls. You stumble outside, needing air, but the streets know better. Shadows shift, and you swear you see a figure dart between shacks. You blink, and it's gone. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so haunted? Even the ghosts can't afford to leave. You force a chuckle, but it's more a whimper. You can't stay here. The town's not just empty, it's alive with something you don't want to meet. You grab your blanket, clutching the jar of eggs, and head for the open plains. The fever's making you see things. Or maybe the West's just that cruel, playing tricks to break you. You're not a survivor, just a fool running from whispers, praying the dawn burns away whatever's watching. The stars are cold, the town's silhouette fading behind you, but you feel its eyes on your back, waiting for you to fall. You're stumbling away from the ghost town, its eerie whispers fading but still crawling under your skin. The jar of pickled eggs in your hand feels like a cursed trophy, and your fever's spiking again, making the starlit plains waver like a mirage. You're barely holding it together when the Wild West throws a new predator your way. A bounty hunter, mistaking you for some outlaw on a crumpled wanted poster. His horse's hoofbeats thunder behind you, and you're running. Your weak legs no match for his relentless pursuit. You're not a criminal, just a sick drifter. But the frontier doesn't care about truth when a reward's on the line. The plains offer no cover, just grass and the occasional rock, useless against a man with a gun and a mission. You hear him shout, "Stop, or I'll shoot." But you keep going, your breath ragged, fever blurring the stars. Historical fact? In the 1870s, bounty hunters roamed the West, often capturing or killing suspects for cash, with little regard for due process. Quirky tidbit. Some hunters carried dead or alive posters in waterproof pouches, like morbid trading cards. Imagine collecting faces for a living. Historians still argue whether bounty hunters were lawmen or glorified thugs, but you're too busy fleeing to care. You dive behind a low bush, heart hammering, the jar of eggs slipping from your sweaty grip. It shatters, the vinegary stench rising as you curse under your breath. The hunter's closer, his horse snorting, and you see his silhouette, tall, hat low, a rifle slung across his back. You clutch your rusty knife, knowing it's no match for him. You think back to that ghost town, its shadows almost welcoming compared to this. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy run from a hunter? He didn't want to be someone's paycheck. You crawl, praying the dark hides you. But your cough betrays you, hacking loud enough to wake the dead. The hunter swings his lantern, its beam cutting through the night. "I know you're there, Riley," he barks, naming some outlaw you're not. You want to shout that you're nobody, but fear chokes you. Your fever's making you dizzy, and you're not sure if you can stand, let alone run. You think about that buzzard, probably circling, betting on the hunter to win. "Not yet," you whisper, but your voice is a rasp. You spot a shallow gully and roll into it, thorns tearing at your blanket. The hunter's boots crunch nearby, and you hold your breath, praying he misses you. His lantern swings, light grazing the gully's edge, and you flatten yourself, dirt in your mouth. You're starting to hate this land, its endless ways to kill you. Snakes, storms, now this. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his lies about freedom. If you survive, you'll make him face this hunter. Joke number 2. What's a bounty hunter's favorite game? Hide and seek, with a bullet for the loser. He pauses, muttering, then mounts his horse, trotting off. You wait, counting to 100, then crawl out, shaking. You're alive, but not safe. He could circle back. Your blanket's torn, your eggs gone, and your fever's worse, like the West is piling on for fun. You stagger forward, no direction, just away from him. The plains are wide, the stars cold, and you're starting to see why outlaws ran. Sometimes running's all you've got. You grip your knife, more for comfort than defense, and keep moving, though every step's a fight. You spot a faint trail, maybe leading to a town, maybe another trap. You're too tired to care, but stopping's not an option. The hunter's out there, and so are 100 other threats. You think about that native camp, its fleeting kindness. Should have stayed, fever or not. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so welcoming? It's got a bounty on every fool. You force a weak chuckle, but it's more a cough. Your body's screaming, thirst, hunger, sickness, but you're still here. a stubborn spark in a land that wants you snuffed out. Dawn's hours away, and you're not sure you'll see it. You're not an outlaw, not a survivor, just a shadow dodging a hunter's noose. The plains stretch on, indifferent, and you're learning the West's cruelest lesson. It doesn't care who you are, only how long you last. You limp along, praying the trail leads somewhere safe. But deep down, you know safe is a lie in this brutal frontier. You're limping along the trail. The bounty hunter's hoofbeats a fading echo, but your fever's roaring back, turning your legs to jelly. The Wild West's plains are merciless, and now hunger's clawing at you again, sharper than ever. You've got no food. Those pickled eggs are a sour memory, shattered in your panicked flight. Your blanket's in tatters, your knife's more rust than blade, and starvation's pushing you to desperate choices. You're scavenging, praying for scraps, but the frontier's stingy, and every step risks a trap. Animal, outlaw, or your own crumbling will. You're not just hungry, you're unraveling, and the West is betting you'll break. The landscape's a cruel tease, dry grass, thorny bushes, and not a berry in sight. Your stomach's a knot, and your mouth's so dry you can't swallow. You're hallucinating again, smelling fresh bread, seeing a picnic table in the distance. You blink, and it's just more dirt. Historical fact: in the 1870s, starvation was a grim reality for settlers, with many resorting to eating roots, insects, or even their own boots when game was scarce. Quirky tidbit: some pioneers tried prairie tea, brewing grass like it was Earl Grey. Tasted like despair and did nothing for hunger. Historians still argue whether failed hunts or barren land killed more, but you're too weak to care. You drop to your knees, pawing at the ground for anything edible. You find a patch of tough roots, yanking them up with shaking hands. They're bitter, like chewing on regret, but you force them down, gagging. You think back to that wagon train's watery stew, its fleeting warmth. Should have begged for more, pride be damned. Your knife's useless for hunting. You're no tracker, and the rabbits you see are too fast. You spot a beetle crawling nearby and hesitate. You're not there yet, but the thought lingers, and that scares you. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy eat dirt? It's the West's only all-you-can-eat buffet. You stagger on, eyes scanning for game. A skinny bird flits across the trail, and you throw a rock, missing by a mile. Your aim's as bad as your luck, and the bird's mocking chirp feels personal. You're starting to see why settlers went mad. Hunger's not just physical, it's a blade twisting in your mind. You think about that buzzard, circling high, probably licking its beak. Not yet, you croak, but your voice is a ghost, barely reaching the wind. You're not a survivor, just a fool chasing crumbs in a land that hoards its bounty. You find a dried-up stream bed and dig, hoping for water to wash down the roots. Your fingers bleed, but you hit damp mud, slurping it like it's fine wine. It's gritty, but it keeps you going. You're starting to hallucinate worse. Your old kitchen, a fridge full of food. You shake your head, forcing focus, but it's hard when your body's shutting down. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his lies about plenty. If you survive, you'll make him eat these roots. Joke number 2. What's starvation's favorite trick? Making you dream of steak. You spot a dead jackrabbit, half-eaten by something bigger. Your stomach lurches. Hunger says take it, but reason screams disease. You poke it with your knife, and the stench makes you retch. You back away, but the image sticks, a grim reminder of how low you're sinking. You're not sure what's worse, the hunger or the choices it's forcing. You keep moving, praying for a miracle, a dropped biscuit, a slow squirrel. The plains are wide, the stars cold, and you're starting to feel like you're fading into them. A faint smell hits you. Smoke, maybe a campfire. You stumble toward it, hope flickering, but it's just a lightning-struck tree, smoldering. No food, no people, just another slap from the West. You slump against the trunk, too weak to cry. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so generous? It gives you hunger for free. You force a chuckle, but it's more a cough. Your fever's blending with starvation, making every step a battle. You grip your knife, not for hunting, but to remind yourself you're still here. still fighting. Dawn's creeping in, but it's no comfort. You need food, or you're not making it another day. You're not a hunter, not a forager, just a shadow of yourself, gambling on a land that's already won. You drag yourself upright, clutching your tattered blanket, and pick a direction, praying it leads to something, anything, before hunger claims you for good. The frontier's watching, patient and cruel, waiting for your last stumble. You're dragging yourself across the plains, starvation's grip tightening with every shaky step, your fever a dull fire that won't quit. The Wild West's relentless, and now it's tossing you back into the chaos of a boomtown, its lights flickering like a false promise. You stumble into its dusty streets, drawn by the smell of grilled meat and the hope of food, but the air's thick with danger. A saloon's rowdy glow pulls you in, and before you can blink, you're caught in a barroom brawl, fists flying and bottles smashing. You're no fighter, just a starving drifter with a rusty knife, and you'll need quick wits to dodge the bullets in this frontier madhouse. The saloon's a haze of smoke and sweat, men shouting over a tinny piano. You're hovering near the bar, eyeing a plate of half-eaten beans someone left behind, when a drunk shoves another, and the room erupts. A chair sails past your head, and you duck, heart pounding. Historical fact: in the 1870s, saloon brawls were common in boomtowns like Dodge City, often sparked by gambling disputes or too much whiskey, with injuries far outnumbering deaths. Quirky tidbit: some saloons had bullet boards behind the bar to tally stray shots. Imagine a scoreboard for chaos. Historians still argue whether brawls were drunken outbursts or fueled by deeper tensions, but you're too busy dodging a flying bottle to care. You grab the beans, shoving them in your mouth, the cold grease a lifeline despite the chaos. A bearded man swings at another, clipping your shoulder, and you stumble into a poker table, cards scattering. The players roar, thinking you're cheating, and you raise your hands, stammering, "I'm not playing." A fist grazes your jaw, and you hit the floor, tasting blood. You think back to that ghost town, its eerie quiet. Right now, you'd take whispers over this. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy hit the saloon? To get punched before dessert. You crawl under a table, clutching your knife. Not to fight, but to feel less helpless. The brawl's a storm. Men grappling, women shrieking, the barkeep firing a shotgun at the ceiling. Plaster rains down, and you're praying no one's aiming lower. You're weak, fever making the room spin, but you spot a gap toward the door. You scramble, dodging boots and broken glass, your blanket snagging on a splintered chair. You yank it free, heart racing, and think about that buzzard, probably circling, annoyed you're still dodging disaster. Keep waiting, you mutter, coughing through the smoke. You're almost at the door when a gambler grabs your arm, mistaking you for his rival. "You owe me," he slurs, raising a derringer. You twist free, shoving him into another fighter, and bolt outside. The street's no safer, brawls spilling out, and you duck behind a barrel as a stray bullet pings nearby. You're not cut out for this. Your skills are more avoid trouble than survive a riot. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his lies about lively towns. If you survive, you'll make him face this saloon. Joke number 2. What's a brawl's favorite cowboy? The one who's already down. You weave through the chaos, hunger still gnawing despite the stolen beans. Your fever's spiking, and the town's a blur of shouts and lantern light. You spot a quiet alley and slip into it, catching your breath. Your jaw's throbbing, and your blanket's torn worse than ever. You're starting to see the West's rhythm. Every hope, food, shelter, comes with a fist or a bullet. You check your pack, knife, empty canteen, nothing else. You're running out of everything, especially luck. The brawl's noise fades, but you're not safe. A shadow moves at the alley's end. Another drunk? Or worse, someone who saw you in the saloon. You grip your knife, ready to run, but your legs are lead. You think about that native camp, its fleeting kindness. Should have stayed, fever or not. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so fun? It's got a punch for every fool. You force a weak chuckle, but it's more a wheeze. You're not a scrapper, just a battered drifter, praying the town doesn't swallow you whole. Night's deep now. The stars cold above the boomtown's glow. You need to move. Find food, rest, anything. But every step's a gamble. You're too weak to keep running, but stopping feels like surrender. You limp out of the alley, keeping to the shadows, hoping to scavenge something before the next fight finds you. The frontier's a brutal host, and you're learning the hard way that survival's not about strength. It's about outlasting the chaos, one shaky breath at a time. You're limping away from the boomtown's chaos, the saloon brawl's bruises throbbing in time with your fading fever. The Wild West's streets are still buzzing, but you've slipped into the shadows, your stomach growling louder than the distant shouts. The plains stretch beyond the town, and a new threat's rising. A faint orange glow on the horizon, crackling with menace. A prairie fire's roaring across the grass, fast and unstoppable, and you're in its path with nowhere to run. Your tattered blanket and rusty knife are no match for this inferno, and the frontier's about to teach you that nature's fury burns hotter than any barroom fight. The air's thick with smoke, stinging your eyes as the wind carries the fire's roar. You're coughing, your lungs still raw from the dust storm, and the heat's already licking at your skin, though the flames are half a mile off. You need to move, fast, but your legs are shaky, and the plains offer no cover, just dry grass begging to burn. Historical fact: in the 1870s, prairie fires swept the Great Plains, often sparked by lightning or careless campfires, destroying homesteads and forcing settlers to flee. Quirky tidbit: some pioneers tried fire breaks, digging trenches to stop flames, about as useful as a bucket against a flood if the wind was strong. Historians still argue whether poor land management or unpredictable weather caused more fire deaths, but you're too busy panicking to care. You scan for escape. A river, a rocky patch, anything. The town's behind you, but running back means facing the brawl's aftermath, or worse. You spot a shallow dip in the ground, maybe a dry creek bed, and stumble toward it, your blanket flapping like a flag of surrender. The fire's closer now, a wall of orange devouring the grass, its heat pressing against your back. You think back to that dust storm, its choking grip. This is worse. A beast that doesn't just blind but consumes. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy face a fire? To get roasted without a spit. You dive into the creek bed, scraping your knees on rocks. It's not deep, but it's something. The earth cooler than the air above. You pull your blanket over your head, hoping it'll shield you, but it's so thin it's more prayer than protection. The fire's roar is deafening, and embers float down like deadly snowflakes, singeing your sleeves. You're coughing harder, smoke seeping through the blanket, and your fever's spiking, making the world blur. You think about that buzzard, probably soaring above the flames, betting on you to crisp. Not yet, you rasp, but the words choke in your throat. You press yourself lower, face in the dirt, breathing shallow to avoid the smoke. The fire's so close you feel its heat through the ground, like lying on a skillet. You're starting to see why settlers feared these blazes. There's no fighting them, only running or hiding, and you're barely managing the latter. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his lies about fertile plains. If you survive, you'll make him walk through this fire. Joke number 2. What's a prairie fire's favorite cowboy? The one who's already medium rare. A gust shifts the wind, and the fire veers slightly, sparing your creek bed for now. You're not safe, the flames could circle back, but you've got a moment. You peek out, eyes streaming, and see the fire tearing across the plains, leaving blackened earth behind. Your blanket's scorched, and your hands are blistered from clutching hot rocks. You're alive, but every breath's a fight, and your body's screaming for water, food, rest. You think about that native camp? It's fire a controlled comfort. Should have stayed, fever or not. You crawl out, the air still heavy with smoke but cooler. The fire's moving away, but the plains are a smoldering ruin. No food or shelter in sight. You're too weak to keep running. But staying here's a death sentence. Another fire could spark, or worse, you'll collapse. You grip your knife, more for defiance than use, and stumble forward, picking a direction away from the flames. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so warm? It's got a fire for every fool. You force a weak chuckle, but it's more a cough. Dawn's breaking, painting the sky a bruised pink through the haze. You're not sure how you're still moving. Hunger, fever, and now burns. But you're too stubborn to quit. The frontier's a cruel forge, hammering you with every step, and you're learning survival's not about winning, just enduring. You limp on, praying for a stream or a town, anything to keep you going. The plains are silent now. The fires roar a memory. But the West's watching, waiting for your next stumble, ready to burn you again. You're staggering across the charred plains, the prairie fire's smoke still stinging your lungs, your scorched blanket barely clinging to your shoulders. Hunger's a constant ache, your fever's a low simmer, and the Wild West's not done breaking you. You limp into a boomtown's outskirts, drawn by the faint glow of lanterns, hoping for food or rest. A slick-talking peddler catches you, hawking a miracle cure from a painted wagon, some foul-smelling tonic he swears will fix your ailments. You're desperate, so you trade your tattered blanket for a bottle, only to learn it's useless, a scam that leaves you sicker and more broken than before. The frontier's teaching you that hope's just another trap. The town's quieter than the last, but no less predatory. Saloons hum, and eyes follow you from every porch. The peddler's grin is all teeth, his wagon plastered with promises of vitality and vigor. You're coughing, your burns throbbing, and his pitch hits hard. One sip and you'll be right as rain. You've got no money, but he eyes your blanket, scorched but still usable. You hesitate, remembering the blizzard's bite, but desperation wins. You hand it over, getting a small bottle of murky liquid in return. Historical fact. In the 1870s, snake oil salesmen roamed the West, peddling tonics laced with alcohol, or worse, profiting off settlers' desperation. Quirky tidbit. Some tonics were flavored with molasses to mask the taste, like drinking a bad dessert with a side of regret. Historians still argue whether ignorance or greed drove the snake oil trade, but you're too sick to care. You gulp the tonic, wincing at its bitter, oily burn. It's like swallowing regret, and your stomach twists instantly. The peddler's gone before you can blink, his wagon rattling out of town. You stumble to a bench, clutching your knife, and wait for the cure to kick in. It doesn't. If anything, you're dizzier, your fever spiking as nausea creeps up. You think back to that prairie fire? It's honest danger? Better that than this betrayal dressed as hope. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy buy a tonic? To trade one pain for two. You're starting to see the town's true face. Every smile's a hustle, every deal a knife in disguise. A passerby offers a pitying glance but keeps walking, and you're too weak to beg. Your burns sting, your lungs ache from smoke, and now this tonic's making you gag. You think about that native camp, its simple kindness. Should have stayed, scam or not. The buzzard's back, circling high, probably smelling your failure. Keep waiting, you mutter. But your voice is a croak, drowned by a saloon's piano. You force yourself up, needing water to wash out the tonic's taste. You find a pump, but the water's brackish, barely better than the scam you drank. You splash your face, hoping to clear the fog, but your hands shake, and your burns scream. You're starting to hallucinate again. Clean beds, a doctor's voice, but it's just the town's grimy street mocking you. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his lies about opportunity. If you survive, you'll make him drink this sludge. Joke number 2. What's a snake oil's favorite cowboy? The one dumb enough to pay. You're too sick to stay, but leaving's a gamble. Hunger's carving you hollow, and the plains are no kinder than this town. You spot a church, its door ajar, and stumble inside, hoping for charity. It's empty, just pews and dust, but it's quiet. You slump in a corner, the tonic bottle slipping from your hand. It's useless, like every promise out here. You're not just fighting sickness, you're fighting the West's knack for dangling hope, then yanking it away. You grip your knife, more for comfort than defense, and try to breathe through the nausea. A creak makes you flinch. The preacher, maybe? Or another hustler. It's just the wind, but you're too jumpy to relax. You think about that saloon brawl. It's chaos almost honest compared to this slow poison. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so healthy? It's got a scam for every symptom. You force a weak chuckle, but it's more a groan. You're not a survivor, just a fool who traded your last shred of warmth for a lie. The church's silence is cold, the town's hum distant, and you're learning the frontier's cruelest trick. It doesn't kill you outright. It lets you kill yourself, one bad choice at a time. Night's falling, and you need a plan. Food, shelter, anything. But your body's shutting down. You curl up, praying the tonic's poison fades before you do. The West's watching, patient, waiting for you to fold. You whisper to yourself to keep going, but the words feel empty, like the bottle at your feet. You're slumped in the church's dusty corner, the snake oil tonic's bitter aftertaste still poisoning your tongue, your fever pulsing like a drumbeat. The Wild West's town hums outside, but you're too weak to face its scams again. You stagger to your feet, clutching your rusty knife, and slip back to the plains, driven by a desperate need to keep moving. The landscape shifts to a narrow canyon, its high walls promising shelter but hiding threats. Outlaws, rock slides, or worse. Every shadow feels like an ambush, and you're a walking target, too sick and hungry to fight. The frontier's tightening its grip, and you're about to learn that even stone walls can't protect you from its traps. The canyon's air is cool, smelling of damp rock and sage, but the silence is heavy, broken only by the crunch of your boots on gravel. Your burns from the prairie fire throb, and the tonic's nausea makes every step a lurch. You've got no blanket now, just your knife and a fading will to survive. Historical fact: in the 1870s, canyons like those in Utah or Arizona were notorious hideouts for outlaws who used the terrain to ambush travelers or dodge posies. Quirky tidbit: some settlers carved their names into canyon walls, hoping for immortality. Most got forgotten or robbed instead. Historians still argue whether bandits or natural hazards like rock slides killed more in these choke points, but you're too jumpy to care. You stick to the canyon's edge, hoping to avoid trouble, but the walls narrow, forcing you into the open. A faint clatter echoes. A pebble falling, or a boot scuffing. You freeze, knife raised, heart pounding. You think back to that bounty hunter, his relentless pursuit. Could he be back, or is this some new predator? The shadows shift, and you're sure you see a figure ducked behind a boulder. You're too weak to run, but standing still feels like begging for a bullet. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy walk the canyon? To make the ambush easier. You inch forward, eyes darting. The canyon's a maze, with side paths that could lead to safety or a dead end. You pick one, scrambling over loose rocks, your burns screaming as you graze a jagged edge. Your stomach's a hollow pit, and the tonic's making you dizzy, like the walls are closing in. You think about that buzzard, probably perched above, betting on you to trip. Not yet, you mutter, but your voice echoes, mocking you. A low whistle cuts the air, human, not wind, and you dive behind a rock, coughing despite yourself. You peek out, seeing nothing but stone and shadow. The whistle's gone, but your nerves are shredded. You're starting to hate this place, its beauty a lie hiding 1,000 traps. You think about that native camp, its fleeting warmth. Should have stayed, tonic or not. Your knife's no match for an outlaw's gun, and you're too shaky to fight. You crawl along the path, praying it widens soon. A sudden crack, a rock slide, sends you scrambling, dust choking you as pebbles rain down. You're fine, but barely, your heart racing like it's trying to escape. Joke number 2. What's a canyon's favorite cowboy? The one who's already trapped. The path opens slightly, and you spot a cave, its mouth dark but inviting. Shelter? Or a bandit's lair? You're too desperate to care. You slip inside, the cool air easing your fever for a moment. It's empty, just damp stone. But you're not alone. Footprints in the dust, fresh. You back out, heart sinking. You're not safe anywhere. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his lies about safe trails. If you survive, you'll drag him through this canyon. The air shifts and you hear boots, real this time, heavy and close. You bolt, picking a new path, your lungs burning. You're running blind now, the canyon's walls blurring as your fever spikes. You're not sure if it's outlaws or your own panic chasing you. But stopping's not an option. You trip, scraping your hands, and scramble up, knife still clutched like a talisman. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so sneaky? It's got a trap for every turn. You force a weak chuckle, but it's more a gasp. You're not a fighter, just a battered drifter, dodging shadows in a land that wants you gone. Dawn's creeping in, painting the canyon red, but it's no relief. You're still lost, still hunted, still starving. The West's a cruel maze, and you're learning survival's not about courage. It's about outrunning the next threat, one shaky step at a time. You limp on, praying the canyon opens to something, anything, before it swallows you whole. You're scrambling out of the canyon, the echo of those heavy boots fading but still haunting your fevered mind. The Wild West's plains open before you, vast and unforgiving, your burns stinging, hunger a relentless claw, and the snake oil tonic's nausea a cruel passenger. You've dodged outlaws, fires, and scams, but now you're alone, facing a final test of survival with nothing but your rusty knife and a body that's giving up. The frontier's stripped you bare, and this is your last stand. No help, no hope, just you against a land that's been trying to kill you since dawn. You're not a hero, just a stubborn fool, and the West's betting you'll fold. The sun's high, baking the cracked earth, and your throat's so dry it feels like sandpaper. You've got no water, no food, and your tattered clothes are more holes than fabric. Every step's a battle, your legs trembling, your vision blurring from fever and exhaustion. Historical fact. In the 1870s, lone travelers often perished on the plains from exposure or exhaustion, their bones found years later with no clue to their story. Quirky tidbit. Some settlers carried lucky charms, like rabbit feet, believing they'd ward off death, about as useful as a wish in a windstorm. Historians still argue whether isolation or physical collapse claimed more lives, but you're too broken to care. You spot a lone tree, its branches bare, and stumble toward it, craving shade. You collapse against its trunk, the bark rough against your burns. You're hallucinating again. Water, a warm meal, but it's just dust and heat. You think back to that native camp, its fleeting kindness. Should have stayed, pride be damned. Your knife's all you've got, and you clutch it. Not for defense, but to feel something solid. The buzzard's back, circling low now, like it knows you're done. Not yet, you croak, but your voice is a ghost, barely stirring the air. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy face the plains? To lose to the sun. You try to stand, but your body's heavy, like the West's pinning you down. You're starving, but there's nothing to scavenge. No roots, no bugs, just dirt. You think about that saloon brawl, its chaos almost lively compared to this empty fight. You're starting to see the frontier's truth. It doesn't care if you're good or bad, just how long you last. You fumble with your knife, carving a shaky line in the tree, not your name, just a mark, proof you were here. It's pointless, but it's something. Your fever's spiking, and the world's tilting, like you're sinking into the earth. You force yourself to move, crawling now, your hands raw. You're not sure where you're going, north, south, anywhere but here. The plains are endless, a cruel mirror of your fading strength. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his lies about glory. If you survive, you'll make him face this emptiness. A faint hum catches your ear, wind, or maybe your mind cracking. You squint, seeing a shimmer, maybe a river, maybe another mirage. You drag yourself toward it, because stopping's admitting the West's won. Joke number 2. What's a cowboy's last hope? The mirage that lies best. Your body's shutting down, each breath a fight. You're not sure if it's hunger, fever, or just the weight of too many losses. You think about that prairie fire, its honest fury. At least it was quick. This slow unraveling's worse, like the West's savoring your defeat. You're hallucinating voices now. Your name, shouted from nowhere. You shake your head, but it's hard to focus. The shimmer's closer, and you're praying it's real, though you know better. You're not a survivor, just a spark refusing to go out, burning against a land that's all ash. You collapse, face in the dirt, the knife slipping from your hand. You're too weak to grab it, too tired to care. The buzzard's shadow passes overhead, and you almost laugh. Almost. Joke number 3. Why is the Wild West so patient? It knows you'll quit eventually. You force a wheeze, your last defiance. You're not sure if you're dying or just done, but you whisper, "Keep going," to no one. The plains are silent, the sun relentless, and you're a fading mark in a land that forgets its losers. This is your last stand, and the frontier's watching, waiting for your final breath. You're sprawled in this dirt, the Wild West's sun scorching your back, your knife lost in the dust as your last stand crumbles. The plains are a silent judge, your fever a fading pulse, and starvation's carved you hollow. You fought snakes, storms, and scams, but now you're just a shadow, clinging to a whisper of defiance. The frontier's lessons are brutal, etched in every bruise and broken hope. And as you lie here, you're reflecting on a land that chews up dreamers like you. The stars are creeping out, watching you fade, and you're drifting toward sleep, or something deeper, under their cold gaze. The ground's hard, but it's almost comforting, like the West's finally claiming you. Your mind's a jumble of memories. That first desert dawn, the rattlesnake's rattle, the native camp's fleeting kindness. You think about that trader in St. Louis, his lies about glory, but you're too tired to curse him now. You're not angry anymore, just empty, like the plains stretching around you. Historical fact. In the 1870s, the American West was a crucible, forging myths of heroism, but breaking most who chased them, with countless graves unmarked. Quirky tidbit. Some settlers left trail diaries, scrawled on scraps, hoping their stories would outlive them. Most were lost to wind or rot. Historians still argue whether the West's promise was a lie or just a gamble too steep for most, but you know your answer. You roll onto your back, staring at the sky. The buzzard's gone, maybe bored with your stubbornness. A faint breeze stirs, carrying the scent of sage, and you breathe it in, shallow but steady. You're not fighting anymore. There's nothing left to fight for. You think about that saloon brawl, its chaos, the prairie fire, its fury. They feel distant, like stories about someone else. You're starting to see the West's truth. It's not about winning, just enduring. And you've endured longer than you thought possible. Joke number 1. Why'd the cowboy keep going? Because quitting's not as fun as it sounds. Your eyes are heavy, the stars blurring into a soft haze. You're hallucinating again. A warm bed, a voice calling you home. But you don't chase it. You're done chasing. You think about that ghost town, its whispers. Maybe you're one of them now, a whisper the West will forget. Your hand brushes the dirt, searching for your knife, but it's gone, and you don't care. You're not a survivor, not a hero, just a fool who danced with the frontier and lost. Joke number 2. What's the West's favorite story? The one where you almost make it. A faint hum grows. Water, maybe, or just your mind slipping. You don't move to check. You're too tired, and the stars are enough. Their light, a gentle pull. You think about that native camp again. Their fires glow. Should have stayed. But you didn't. And that's your story. You're not scared anymore. Just ready for rest, whatever kind comes. Joke number 3. Why's the Wild West so quiet? It's waiting for you to sleep. You force a faint smile, your last spark, and let your eyes close. The plains cradling you like a mother who never loved you. The stars above are softening now, their sharp edges blurring into a gentle glow, like lanterns hung low just for you. The plains are quiet, the wind a whisper, brushing the sage with a touch so light it feels like a promise. You're resting, aren't you? No more running, no more fighting, just you and the vast, endless West, its lessons sinking deep into your bones. It was never about beating this land, only listening to its stories, carved in dust and dreams. The coyotes are silent tonight, the buzzard's flown off, and even the sun's fire has cooled to a hush. You're part of it now, a thread in the frontier's wild tapestry, woven with every stumble, every hope you carried. Let the stars hold you, their light a blanket softer than any you lost. The West's not cruel anymore. It's just still, waiting for you to breathe slow, to drift deeper. Close your eyes, feel the earth beneath you, steady and old. You've earned this quiet, this gentle fading. Sleep now under the sky's embrace, and let the frontier's heartbeat lull you to peace. Sweet dreams, traveler. Sweet dreams.